Hello, this is a short video on what ought to be the most important topic of all time, which is food security under global warming and climate disruption. But it is not even a concern of ours, which is quite incredible, because we cannot take for granted anymore that we're going to be able to put food on our table if we don't become extremely concerned about this issue. I'm Dr. Peter Carter, a retired family physician living in British Columbia, Canada. My past experience and interest over a great many years has been environmental health policy, assessment and development. We do not have good agricultural land to waste. We don't have agricultural land to put at risk to global warming and climate disruption, because the estimate of cropland and pasture is only short of 40% of the world's surface. And here we have the long-lasting, best producing regions in the world, which is why we can feed our global population, here in Central North America, here in Europe, here in India, and here in China. This shows in more detail, more resolution, the limited number of regions on which we depend for our food security. This is a crop intensity map from NASA. And so now we can see the orange regions, which are the top world food producing regions, and of course in central United States here, a little bit of top producing land going into Canada, some top producing land in northern Europe and in eastern Europe, and another large productive region in northern India and going into Pakistan here. Also China, just in the north of China here, and up into this belt of land in the very northernmost part of China, a little bit in Australia here, in south western Australia. Here we're focusing in on the United States, the great food producing regions of the United States for North America, but also for the world, because the productivity in this region here is so high that the US can export a lot of crops. So here's the breadbasket region, grain belt region, top grain belt region of the world. And here also is California, of course, which produces a large amount of fruits and vegetables. I want to stress the point that the slightest reduction in food productivity from the United States will send reverberations across the world and send world food prices skyrocketing. And the first people to suffer from that, although it'll be bad enough, of course, for the people in North America, but the first people to suffer from that will be the marginally economically deprived and most climate change vulnerable populations of the world, because they simply then will not be able to afford to buy the extra food on the world market that they depend on for survival. So under global warming and climate disruption, there are in actual fact, and this has been predicted for a long time, there in actual fact will be valuable agricultural regions which will be hit both with increased rainfall, high and crop damaging rainfall, as well as periods of drying out. And we can see this affecting China here, and affecting northern mid-Europe here, where there is the world's top, one of the world's top food-producing regions. And in actual fact, part of the region in central United States will be hit in this regard as well. So our best agricultural regions are going to be devastated if we allow this to happen. We're now looking into the future with respect to the temperature increase. both the global average increase and the regional increase shown by this high resolution map of the computer programming from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And because we're interested in food productivity, again we're looking at the summertime again here. This is a high emissions scenario, and we are tracking towards a high emissions scenario as regards to global greenhouse gas emissions. Interestingly, from 2000 to 2050, the average temperature increase in July is 2 degrees C, and the maximum increase in July is going up to an extremely hot 5 degrees C. And so we're looking at what all future generations are being condemned to if we continue to do the insane global emissions scenario which we're on, because all the top food producing regions are hit extremely hard by the temperature increase. Here's the Central North American grain belt, United States up into Canada. Here's California. Here's Europe, right across that top world food producing region of Europe, and even into regions like the Ukraine. The Middle East is hit very badly, and in actual fact the Middle East, for example Saudi Arabia, has been growing a considerable amount of crops over the last few decades, but they're going to be hit very hard with temperature. And here China hit extremely and selectively hard with the temperature increase again in the summertime, which will be devastating to crop productivity. So we're now looking at heat waves. This is an extreme weather event, and extreme weather events are not factored into the IPCC assessment models, and of course obviously heat waves are going to be devastating to agricultural production. This again is from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory climate model. This is the A1F1 scenario, which is the high emission scenario which we are in fact actually tracking towards. And so here are the worst regions for heat waves, and just look. Right in the central United States, world's top food producing regions, into California here, into Europe here, the Ukraine, and the region of central to Eastern Europe, which is one of the top food producing regions. China here is also hit badly, and India hit badly also. But the very worst right here in the central United States. To highlight the absolute suicidal insanity of continuing to emit global warming greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, well, let's go and take a refresher look at the best grain producing regions, which are also the best agricultural regions on the planet, and we will see that region for region the best agricultural regions are hit the most by heat and by the intensity of heat waves under global warming. Central United States, Central United States. Europe, Europe. India, India. China, China. This is completely insane. We are throwing away our food security totally. We will not be able to feed ourselves. Our survival totally depends on the agricultural productivity of these regions. The question, of course, the obvious question is, well, why don't we know about this? Why aren't the scientists? Why aren't the NGOs? Why aren't the policymakers, national leaders? Why is nobody telling us about this? Well, then we turn to another insanity for the reason of that. And heat waves, among the other extreme weather events which are inevitable with global warming and climate disruption, are not included in what are called the climate crop models. The computer models of the scientists do not include heat waves, don't include droughts, don't include floods, and they don't include a lot of other things. This, of course, is absolutely crazy. So the official assessments, are only made on about half of the adverse effects which are inevitable from global warming and climate disruption, and heat waves of all things is not one of them. It is quite incredible to think that the IPCC scientific assessment would publish results of climate crop models which do not include, of all things, the damage to crops by temperature extremes. But this is one of a long list of absolutely crucial adverse impacts, also inevitable, that are not captured in the models. And this was made clear in a 2010 report published by the National Research Council on Stabilization Targets for Greenhouse Gas Concentrations, in which they included a pretty good food section which explained the situation of the science in a more forthright manner. And they had this to say: these estimates, and they are referring to the climate crop model graphs that they published here, these estimates do not include additional losses to crops due to weeds, insects, pathogens, changes in water resources available for irrigation, effects of increased flood or drought frequencies, or responses to temperature extremes. And so temperature extremes, yes, is just one of a long list of inevitable adverse impacts from global warming and climate disruption, which will inevitably reduce crop yields. This graph here is the climate crop model ensemble that the Research Council put together, and they expressed the results in terms of regions. The IPCC expressed the model results in terms of latitudes. And so we have United States grain, United States maize in red, and we have Africa maize in yellow. Now, as you can see, right from the get-go of global temperature increase, both United States maize and African maize decline steeply. So clearly that is the grossest criminality that one could ever imagine. The IPCC gives similar results in terms of mid-latitudes and low latitudes. Certainly the lower latitudes, and the which are the developing nations and the most climate change vulnerable regions, fare a lot worse, and well below 1 degree C. Even these incomplete crop models show that these populations are losing food, and these are the populations that can least afford to lose food security. But as you can see here, North America, the United States, is vulnerable to current committed temperature increases already. Here's a closer look at the National Research Foundation's climate crop model ensemble, and here's our committed temperature increase. We're committed from the high 1 degrees up to research papers published that we're committed to as high as 2.4 degrees C. So we're certainly already committed to around 2 degrees C. So if we look at this, at what we're absolutely committed to with respect to crop yields, the picture is pretty terrible. U.S. maize reduced by over 20%. Africa maize here, the same, reduced by over 20%. This purple one here is India rice, and that's practically the same, just over a reduction of 20% crop yields. The somewhat better ones up here are United States soybean, but you see that the soybean starts declining soon after 1 degree C. So it's suffering from the effects of global warming and climate change from a 1 degree C increase. And the climate crop models show that it goes into a much steeper increase at 2 degrees C. And the one which, according to the models, fares somewhat the best is rice in Asia. But again, by 2 degrees C, the Asian rice has gone into a decline, showing it's suffering from vulnerability of global warming and climate change. So we are in a desperate and catastrophic situation today with respect to our commitment of global temperature increase and climate disruption, the effect on crop yields. We're now going to focus in on that top food producing region in the world of the Central North America, the United States. This is a IPCC. Now, the IPCC crop yield model changes under temperature increases reported an absolute regional crop tolerance limit of 3.5 degrees C from 1900. At the absolute maximum, crops would decline at 3.5 degrees C. This map here is a global 3.3 degrees C world, and the regional temperatures mid-continental above 2 degrees C, the regional temperatures are considerably higher than the world average. So you see these deep red regions here, and this one here, which is the top food producing grain belt in the world. This regional temperature increase is 4.5 degrees C. That's a full 1 degree C higher than the absolute crop tolerance limit. So a 3 degrees C world is catastrophic for food security for the United States, and that means for the world. Americans, like the rest of the world, but particularly vital to world food security, Americans have not been advised truthfully of the situation on their food security, and that means world food security, under global warming and climate disruption. And these three climate change computer modeled results show the clear trend of food security for the United States. Here's the one we've just been looking at, and the deep red here is the maximal temperature increase, and it's right over here, which is the great food producing region. This is corn there, that's soybean, and that's wheat. So this region is hit again here with a lacking reduction of summer rainfall for these crops, and this is reflected here of the increase in dry days, and the same situation. A very, very bad situation for agricultural production and world food security. The people in the most advantaged regions of the world in the northern hemisphere, those in the United States and in Europe, have been led to believe a fairy tale. They've been led to believe that global warming and climate disruption would not put their food security at risk. This is totally untrue. This is the heat wave map again, the extreme temperatures, and here's the great food production region again of the United States, one of Europe, and look, the situation is every bit as bad as for Africa. I know that Africa, of course, is in a worse position to start off with, but these are extreme conditions in which agriculture will fail. So unless people wake up to the fairy tale that they've been led to believe and face reality, I'm afraid they can kiss their breakfast cornflakes goodbye in the rather near future.